Hey, there's no shame in trying things that people ain't never tried before.
God said, "Let there be light." And light there was, boys. Today we're discussing words and ideas, yours and others, how they affect you. Words influence our realities, our perceptions at least, conscious perceptions. We live in a Christian influenced society, and God created everything through the Word. As such, we often act similarly, believing our words and ideas influence our world, rather than our world influencing and generating our ideas. So when people speak, they aren't just speaking, they're constructing worlds and systems to live in and by. For example, someone says, letting someone else piss on your chest is a bad idea. Now, is letting someone piss on your chest actually a bad idea? I don't know. What is it? It's just someone pissing on your chest. I don't know what that is. But they're constructing a reality with words and ideas in which that is bad, a bad thing. Whether or not it actually is. And let's say you're a chest pisser, or a chest pissee. Your reaction to hearing someone say this is to either justify it when there's nothing to justify, or to accept it and say, alright, I suck. I live in this bad world, even though this bad world is word constructed. That is functionally miserable because you're either justifying something that needs no serious or has no serious word justification, or you're living in a word prison where you're miserable when you probably needn't be. But that's just a kink or something, or any non-serious example. You can probably just brush that off. Actually, you might need a mop or something, but you get the idea, boys. A more serious example, or an example where words influence your substantial or physio-substantial, big words, boys, reality. Have you stopped beating your wife? You see, that example is not just a word trap, where if you engage it, you lose. That's not just a double bind, a word double bind. That has physical consequences. You could go to jail. You could be seriously punished. Have you stopped beating your wife? No, I haven't. Yes, I have. Either way, in this reality, you beat your wife. And that's a punishable offense, and you will be punished. So, words carry weight. They have real physical consequences, although they are not actually physical or substantial. They're just communicative tools. Not only that, though, not only can they have serious physical consequences by constructing realities, they also construct you, others' conceptions of you, and even your conception of yourself. A little side note, I wanted to make an entire video about this, but couldn't because videos need points, boys. So we're putting it here. How do you know who you are? Have you ever thought about that? Have you ever sat down and thought, who am I? What defines me? What systems do I follow? And if you trace your roots, your actions, their causes, and you're honest. There's my word trap construction, boys. If you don't come to the same conclusion I do, you're dishonest. Your ideology changes constantly. And you change your ideology to fit your ideas, or you change your ideas to fit your ideology. But there's nothing really there as you can describe it. Because as predictable as your dumbass is, you're completely spontaneous and beyond even yourself. So, when you say something or make something, that is more you, quotes, than you, because your words, at least in our culture, and even in others at this point, are your reference point. Your words and people's reactions to your words are you. Or at least, that's what we value, that's how we think. For example, I view my work, my writings, boys, I'm a novelist, and my conversations with others, I view them as ethereal missionaries and probes, spreading whatever I am and telling me what I am by other people's reactions. In fact, I often prefer people complimenting my work than me, because my work is concrete. I built it. I, on the other hand, am something that just happened. Now, whether or not that's true, that perspective, it's just a perspective to demonstrate how we think, how we approach the world. This whole first section's point is we value words very heavily, for better or for worse. The abstract. English is a very abstract language. And if you accept others' words, their language as reality, your own words and language as reality, then it almost becomes reality, or even does become reality. With the beating your wife in prison example, or going to prison. So here's overall section 2. People playing with words to construct realities for themselves and to chain you to. Example 1, psychologists, boys, or rather, the insufferables who love psychologists and therapy. Let me state before this, and even before this entire section, I have no problem with psychologists, therapy, or suit boys, but rather they're dogmatic imposers. That's who we're talking about here. These therapy goers who spend $205 per session just to learn breathing exercises, not so they can deal with their anxiety, but so they can tell others about their breathing exercises which they learned to deal with their anxiety, so they can force these breathing exercises on others so they can deal with their anxiety. It's not enough for them to have happiness or to have a solution. You must have it too, and they'll force it on you so you will have it too. They can't just have their success for themselves. They can't just have their route. You must also have their route. Same with ideologues, boys. They can't just have an opinion. You must have it also. And they use these breathing exercises, these words. You're your own worst enemy, and you must control yourself. And other words to lay traps for you, to trap you in their world, where everything they say is right and everything you do is wrong, and until you accept their poison, you drink their Kool-Aid, you're wrong. But remember, these are just words, boys. These are just word-constructed realities. Another example. I watched a tidbit of a Joe Rogan podcast with Guy Ritchie where Guy Ritchie says, you must want whatever you already have to be happy and succeed. Which, superficially, I agree with. We've actually already made a video about this, haven't we? Where we let our wants decide what we do. But in this podcast, Guy Ritchie bothered me, or annoyed me, because he felt really phony, even though he was saying much of what I've already said, what I've already believed. what I already believe, because it came down to intent. For him, if you want to be happy, you must want what you want. Which feels ridiculous, because if you try to force yourself to want, then you're not really wanting it. You're wanting to want it, which will become wanting to want it ad infinitum. Where my ideas were allowing the wants to develop naturally, then structuring your life around them. But you see, these are words. I'm sure his method works for him, and my method certainly works for me. And yet, just the way he presented himself, wearing the suit, swinging his dick around, and the way Rogan's followers, or maybe his fans, presented themselves, calling everyone who disagreed with him whiners, faggots, that breeds competition and draws you into that word trap. Either you into theirs, or shit, theirs into yours, even if you didn't want one to begin with. Because at that point, it's not just having an idea and succeeding. It's beating. It's winning and losing. And not even literally. Not even physio-substantially. Boys, wholly abstractly. Guy Ritchie and I ate cereal this morning, and we'll sleep in our beds tonight, and we'll do it tomorrow, and we did it yesterday, and yet we focus so heavily on this goddamn abstract word world that has nothing to do with what we're actually doing, and yet we value it so heavily. We'll be so angry and invested in it. We'll fight each other and we'll kill each other. Eventually, not now, of course. I've been reading a lot of YouTube comments recently. I've never really done this before. I've never really had the interest to, but for some reason I have recently, and they make me want to die. I hate YouTube commenters. I fucking hate them. They're the scum of the earth. They're so... you get what I mean. Hold on, we were about to go into another word trap, boys. With these psychologist, therapist obsessors, with these masculine success definers, dogmatists, pushing their panaceas, because we, in our culture, value words so heavily, we either submit to their constructed worlds, or we construct our own to compete with theirs, when we needn't do either, boys, because shit, we already figured it out. We are. I'll say it again. Guy Ritchie, the therapist boys, you eat breakfast, go to sleep. You are. But some people impose. They can't just have their own ideas, so they force them on others, or say this is the right idea and any other ideas are the wrong ideas. And then some people are silly enough. I'm a fucking retard. I always take the bait. And it just gets ugly. It gets so needlessly ugly. Because we are both all successful. But in this word world, where there are no points of reference, or any points of reference we have are individually or ideologically constructed, we can't easily prove we are. So we get trapped or we confront. So why do these ideas, these words, bother me so much? Bother you so much, I'm guessing. I'd wager, boys, because I think you and I aren't that much different. Questions. Is it because we are insecure losers? Well, maybe. Is it because they are right and we are wrong? Is it because our worldviews are so feminine and fragile and weak, and because their worldviews are so masculine and strong and ideologically well defined. Fucking no! On all accounts. I mean, insecurity is one thing, that's the jokely do. But because we are. And we already said that, but let me elaborate further on we are, boys. Let's depart from the abstract for a moment. From objectivity and subjectivity and ideology and philosophy and all that other garbage. Suits and yoga shirts. Suits and wife beaters. Pricklies and soupies. Substantially. Weightlifting, boys. There are so many different ideas about physical fitness. How to become strong. How to build your endurance. How to live healthily and well. CrossFit. I hate CrossFit. CrossFit drives me away from the gym. It's miserable. I hate doing it. I hate the people, for the most part, who do it. And it's just kind of gay, and not in a good way. What are you doing? You're hyper-competitive, measuring your dicks against everyone else in your little class, just so you can scream in your boyfriend's face later. Now to me, living healthy is living lazily, or rather, living happily. Weightlifting, powerlifting, eating a bunch of mac and cheese and kielbasa, eating a Whopper, drinking a glass of wine beforehand. Lifting very heavily in small amounts, so you can be gay in a good way, and lift your boyfriend up off the ground with your bare hands. All physical fitness is a little homoerotic, boys, let's be real. But in either case, no matter what system you subscribe to, we can look at each other, and we can look at ourselves, not just abstractly, but literally, physio-substantially, in the mirrors and say, yeah, we're healthy. Look at us. Feel these meaty arms, boys, or your little fucking dainty little CrossFit-ass bodies. There's no word definition for it. You just see it and know it and say, yes! That's all there is to it. It doesn't matter which powerlifter or which gay boy's system you use. It's your results. I use, not to jerk myself off, but I use mainly my own system. I just go out there and I fuck around and I do whatever I want. And fucking around and doing whatever I want has made me more gains in the last few years than shit I ever had prior. It works. And it's self-evident. I can point to it and say, this works. Look at it. But you can't do that in the English, Western word world. Because they're just words. As serious as everyone takes them, and as literally as everyone structures themselves around wearing suits or doing whatever else, whatever other dumb shit we do for our words, we can't point to our words and say, this works, even if they do. My thinking system, which isn't really a thinking system because I'm a fucking retard, which means it is actually a thinking system, framed as a non-thinking system, but it is a thinking system, I feel happy, or I feel a certain way, but how do you point to those feelings? Because those feelings are meant to be communicated through words, but words are abstract, and you can't point at the words, so you can't prove them. Even though the feelings, your experiences, should be self-evident, you are. You can't prove they are through words, because words are abstract. Words are not muscle. You can't flex your feelings unless you're a poet, boys. Unless you're a poet. Which is just a joke and an example, but you get what I mean. When Stefan Molyneux comes up to you and says, donate $1 or you're contributing to the West's downfall, you don't say, well, prove to me what the West is, literally, and prove to me how not donating $1 will contribute to the West's downfall. You just kinda do. You say, shit, well, fuck. When Jordan B. Peterson or Nietzsche comes up to you and says, hey, bucko, God is dead. Clean your room and you're not a man. You don't say, hey, bucko, my dick is 4 inches long, and I can lift a dresser, and only sweat a little bit. And I made mac and cheese earlier. That's not what you say, even though you are a man, and that is what you did. You say, shit, well, am I a man? Am I not a man? And then you look at his system, or you make your own system to prove you are a man, rather than looking at what you are. Because these ideas are just that. They're just ideas. For example, people love arguing about what defines masculinity, and it's the fucking stupidest argument. Because they'll always say, a man does this, 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 and this. Now, my uncle is literally a 40-year-old soy boy. Loves Nintendo. But he's the best man I think I've ever met. Because he married my aunt, and he cares for my 2 autistic cousins. Loves them as his own children. And he's not particularly masculine. He's a soy boy. My aunt rules the roost, and yet he supports them, lives with them, does what nobody else would do, and improves their lives substantially. He is an excellent man. But people who argue masculinity, he doesn't fit in their masculinity standards. And then these people who argue masculinity will immediately go, oh no, well, you know, he is a man, he's a real man. And then they'll change their model to include him, while excluding other real men who also don't fit the model, rather than allowing what a good man is create the model. Which is already pretty broad and hard to define, so why even bother defining it rather than just letting it happen? Do you see what I mean? It's not even hard, it's impossible to just point to the abstract and say this is, because it's just abstract. Fuck, you can't flex the abstract, boys. And this is all super annoying, because despite knowing they're just words, our culture, our minds, even our physiosubstantial realities, boys, hinges on them. So we take them very seriously. So when someone you care about, or a popular ideologue who will be dead and forgotten soon, or even a simple YouTube commenter, words against your words, or misconstrues your words, which is even worse because they're taking you, almost literally you, and warping it into them, which is super annoying, or tries trapping you in their own word construct, or forces you to build your own word construct to trap other people in, which you don't want to do. Hoops and hoops and hoops, boys. You take it seriously whether you want to or not. Very unfortunately. Because in the word world, you can't just point to what you have. You have it. You know you have it. But you can't point to it and prove it. So instead, you compensate or you attack, like these YouTube commenters who are obsessed with repeating what the person they like says and calling everyone who disagrees a fucking retard, prompting everyone who disagrees with that person to call them the other people fucking retards, and getting nowhere. You're forced to engage, or you feel engagement necessary when it isn't, because you are. We already know that. But you can't point to it. So you need to compensate for not being able to point to it. Does that make sense? And this is particularly annoying because this compensatory, boys, approach destroys fun or interest. When I look at people, I look to see, or I like looking to see. Not looking to obey, not looking to destroy, just looking to see. Because technically everybody is, and if they are, they have something to say. They themselves have something to say, not to be obeyed or to destroyed, but to see. And seeing is fun, man. Shoogly doogly. I cycle through men with shit to say because many inevitably feel phony, but Patrice O'Neal, the comedian, the big black man, the great, and I say that earnestly, because I always come back to him. I stop listening to him for months at a time, but I always come back because he is just so fascinating to listen to. His not wife, his girlfriend, his super girlfriend, he gave her a ring and said, "This is whatever you think it is." He did not say marriage. He didn't say friends with benefits. He didn't say anything. He didn't put words on it because he knew if he put words on it, she would act according to those words. By leaving it vague, he acknowledged a something, but did not constrain it. And I think, god damn, dude, I think that's why his relationship worked until he died. That's beautiful. Not constraining it to one thing, but acknowledging. Not constraining, acknowledging. That's why I can always come back to Patrice O'Neal, because he's just a fucking dude doing shit worth seeing. Not a person imposing something others ought to follow, because they must. Do you feel me? But, or so. Boys, words, words, words. How do you deal with words and verbal trappers, imposers, dogmatists, bootlickers? Boys, how do you deal with them? Well, while we can't escape the word world, even though the world makes the word world, we're stuck in the word world. So I recommend a physical anchor. A physio-substantial anchor. Now, that could be anything you can literally point to. For example, weightlifting. You can point to your muscles. No matter what system you're following, you are. For me, it's my channel, or at least is one of them. I can point to my channel and say, it doesn't really matter what system I'm following, I am. Or even the book reboot I'm trying to write. Now that I have my junk worked out and I can write something functional, I followed nobody's system to get there. I didn't look for some big father figure who knew all the answers to tell me what to do. Some ideologue. I just managed. I can point to it. I did. That's what I'm recommending here. Something substantial you can point to that reminds you are. You can't escape the word world, unfortunately. It's just part of our lives. But I say you can't escape the word world. Maybe we can one day. For right now, I don't see how we can. I can't. But although we can't point to our feelings and our thoughts and our internal successes, we can't empirically prove them because they are completely abstract. And when you reduce anyone's philosophies to their base levels, they all look pretty similar. Keep that in God damn, keep that in mind. If you reduce anyone's thinking to a base level, they all end up in about the same place. Although you can't point to your ideas like you can your physical anchors create precedence or principle to follow, to carry with you into the word world. You can't point to how someone makes you feel, or to how a show makes you feel, or to what something means to you and say this is substantial, this is real, how a religion makes you feel, how this idea changed your perspective on life. But you can point to the bowl of cereal you had this morning and say, this fed me. Does that make sense? You take the substantial, and you know it's substantial because it is, just self-evidently, it is in the physical world. And you take that into the abstract world where you can't just point to it and prove it, but you know it's there because you can feel it, just like you feel the cereal in your stomach. And that's it. You know it's there. Just because in this realm you can't point to it and prove it, you know it's there and you know it is. And you're eating breakfast and you're going to sleep at night. And suddenly it's easier to swing again, even around these dogmatists and imposers, because you aren't stuck obeying, competing, or incorporating. You don't look at someone's broccoli and say, fuck your shit, dude, you shouldn't be eating broccoli, you should be eating cauliflower. You both just eat and get by, and that's it. Same with ideas. Except in man, in idea land, considering we take it so seriously, but there's nothing to point to. We have no serious points of reference, even though we do sort of have points of reference, because our substantial lives are our points of reference, but they don't feel like they translate well because we're... you can't punch ideas, or so on. You get... man, I'm overbaking it. You get... I think you understand what I mean. So, boys, summaries, takeaways. Words construct abstract worlds and self-conceptions. And while these ideas and self-conceptions are unavoidable, and even important, good, actually, I'd argue, or at least fun, if nothing else, something to do, they can be traps, negativity pits, if you're not careful. Because without a point of reference, how do you know what is and isn't? Even if you feel what is and isn't, what you feel is and isn't doesn't translate into this world where your reference points don't work. So, to deal with this, you have a physical anchor which you can look to substantially, physically, literally. Or at least as literally as we can look in this subjective world, boys. Then carry that principle. I am. Look at it. You can look at this. You can feel these muscles, boys. I am. Then carry these into the abstract world where, although there are no points of reference, you know you are. Just because you can't point to it doesn't mean you aren't. And you already knew that, because we already made the video, and even if I hadn't made the video, on some level you already knew. But in this confrontational world where everyone claims they have the answers and they posture, and everyone's so confrontational, needlessly destroying let's see in favor of let's obey or let's destroy, life is lost. And it's good to have reminders that you are, and life is, and other people can be too. And we can be together, separately, which implies together, but also implies separately, and so on. Put that on your fridge, boys. But that about rippity wraps this one up. That about rippity wraps this one up, boys. I hope you enjoyed watching, because I certainly enjoyed making it. I missed a few points I wanted to get to, so we'll get to them right here. One of the psychologist therapy people I talked to, they get on my nerves, these people do. They're all the same. I don't mean they're all the same, as in they're all literally the same, but I don't know, there's nothing to point to, really. But they all feel like they come from the same cloth. He was talking about how breathing exercises, he had all these breathing exercises that everybody should follow, and all these orders everyone should follow, otherwise they can't really be happy. And you talk to these people and they're super insufferable, and I'm glad they're happy, but it's obnoxious that they're pushing their shit on other people who are happy without it. And I was trying to be cordial, man. I said, I'd like to or please tell me what you mean. I'd like to understand you better. And he goes, oh, well, it's okay. Not all of us can understand people in psychology. It takes a lot of time. Fortunately, it's time I've well invested. And that's the smarmiest, shittiest, just most obnoxious thing to say, right? Because it's they're taking what you're saying, you give them an opportunity, and they take it, and they put you down, and they play themselves up so they can further downplay others and play themselves up even further. And that's the most annoying thing. And people, not just therapy boys do this, other people do this also. Ideologues, gurus, podcast boys, anyone who plays they have something that other people need. And they build these constructs, word constructs, man. But really word constructs, man. To lure people in or give others to attack others with and bring them in. And I fall for it all the time. This win-loss system that doesn't really exist, but with their intensity and saturation they imply and force, when it doesn't exist, and it doesn't need to exist either. Even if it does exist, it doesn't need to exist, because there's something to point to, but you can't point to it. That's what this video is about. That's what I'm getting at, boys. You are point to dealing with fucks Boogaloo. Yeah, that's the one. That's right. Okay. So, like if you enjoyed, because that helps me out a lot. Subscribe if you haven't, because we do this shit sometimes. And comment your thoughts, because I love hearing from you. What are some of your physical anchors? Or how do you deal with people who confront you or imply you aren't, when you know you are, but cannot literally prove you are? How? This is actually a question that I've been asking some people, and I haven't gotten super serious answers yet. So if you have some, let me hear them. Even though I hate my commenters, of course. Fuck you guys. You can tell me to fuck myself. But thanks again for watching, everybody. Really, we have a lot of fun on these videos. So much fun, in fact. You could take oh, I flipped that upside down. A Dream Vision TM by Tsumi. Premium VR goggles. Enhanced headset dust cover. Which doesn't work, and you bought for $5 on clearance, which was a joke, even though you watched porn on it a couple of times. Which was kind of cool, but not what you were expecting. So now you want to buy an HTC Vive so you can actually get the porn experience. But you use the dust cover to dust cover your microphone. You can fill that dust cover with fun. That's how much fun we have on this channel, and I look forward to doing this with you guys again in the future.